Ted, my friend? Yes, Bill, my friend? I believe we are going to accomplish the rare, long-delayed sequel that'll actually be satisfying. Most excellent! Bill and Ted Face the Music. So, before anybody asks, no, I don't currently have plans to review New Mutants or Tenet because regardless of whether or not they're playing close to me, I do not feel comfortable and safe going to movie theaters right now. Whereas Bill and Ted was something I was able to see at home, not at the most inexpensive cost. So I'm not sure it's necessarily economical to do that unless, you get a bunch of people around and, 3 or more people, it's worth the price to get it on Amazon, which is how I watched it. That's not a plug for Amazon, that's just the truth of the logistics of things. So, Bill and Ted is a franchise that I grew up on to a certain degree. I wasn't like really at the first wave of it. I think I had a babysitter once who was like, you haven't seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? That was basically my introduction to it, or at least my introduction to the idea. To my memory, I actually saw Bogus Journey first. My memory of that is a little bit vague, but that's what I remember. And they're fun movies. I went back and rewatched Excellent Adventure with Liz for the first time for her because she hadn't seen it in a while. And as far as that era of comedies go, it holds up better than most. And I think it helps that these guys are just so lovably endearing. And they're not smart, but they're not jerks the way a lot of protagonists from comedies of that point in time tended to be. Especially now going back and watching them going, oh my god, you're not funny, you're just an ass. So it's nice to see something a little bit more wholesome, occasional specific brief jokes notwithstanding. So I haven't rewatched Bogus Journey in a bit, but they're fun. They're inventive. It's really easy to get attached to the leads. They're just the right mix of goofy and well-meaning and a little bit dim, but they just want the best. They just want things to be excellent for everybody. And so I always kind of found the idea of doing a third one to be a little bit dubious. It was one of those things that I was like, really? Do we need that? Does that have to be a thing that exists? And I'm not sure that this final execution proves that it needed to exist, but it does prove that it can exist and not taint what came before and feel like, oh, yeah, these were fun, weren't they? So let's start with our leads. Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan. So Keanu has never really gone from the public eye, and he slips back into Ted very easily, but I think we all expected that. The much nicer thing is seeing Alex Winter again as Bill. Alex Winter has continued acting, but usually in one-off appearances on TV and roles in very small films. He has not been in the public eye for a long time, and seeing him play Bill made me realize, oh, I missed you. Yeah. He's just, and I always kind of liked Bill a little bit more than Ted anyway, so maybe that's part of it, but I was really just pleased just how effortlessly he slipped back into that, because I never had any doubts about Keanu. Not that I had doubts about Alex Winter, but I hadn't seen him in anything for so dang long. It was just nice, and the two of them have not lost a step in their chemistry. They both know still how to play these characters. It's not like when, say, Bruce Willis is brought back to play John McClane and you're like, are you even playing the same character, or are you just playing your current stock character and claiming that it's John McClane? Whereas these guys are like, oh no, you still got it. Now, obviously we have had some losses. We no longer have George Carlin to come in as Rufus. There is a nice little acknowledgement of him, which I certainly appreciated, and Kristen Schaal plays his daughter. I feel like she's slightly underused, or maybe not underused, maybe misused. She only has a couple of moments where I'm like, yeah, there you go. She's a good pick, and she doesn't perform badly. I just don't think the script knew what to do with her aside from, well, she's Rufus's daughter. That's enough, right? Yeah, I guess. Speaking of offspring, though. So Bill and Ted's kids, from the end of Bogus Journey, Little Bill and Little Ted, actually turn out to be daughters. So that's Billy and Theo. They're a lot of fun. And they're both very clearly channeling the persona of their parent characters. It's really fun just watching these very outdated and specific personas of Bill and Ted being inhabited by these 20-something-year-old women. That should be gimmicky. That should be cheap. That should be like, oh yeah, fine, we get it. But no, they both do it so well, and especially like working off each other and working off their dads. It's great. It's wonderful. And actually a lot of the returning cast is fun in that way. Death, somewhat similarly. It's just fun to see him again. And as far as the premise goes, so we've always had the assumption that Bill and Ted were going to create music that was going to unite the whole world together and make the utopian future that we've seen glimpses of. Well, something's going wrong, and it's not just the future that's at stake. It is all of reality that is coming apart because these guys haven't made the music that unites the world yet, and their band pretty much went down the plug hole. And they're still trying, and nothing is working at all, and their marriages are starting to fall apart. And that premise has the potential to sour, what came before. Like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and watch characters that I love be losers and fail. And normally that would turn me off, except the thing is, Bill and Ted were always kind of losers. So, first of all, it fits much better. And also, because they haven't changed as people. It's not like seeing, oh, my hero is now just an absolute bottom of the barrel. Why am I even watching this? Like, no, they are the same as people. They just haven't accomplished what they thought they were going to accomplish by this point in their life. And where things go with that, ultimately by the end, I also kind of liked, it's not the most shocking thing in the world. I didn't call it as far in advance as I think I might have expected to if I were looking at it on paper, but I did figure out where it was going, and I like where it's going. It's nice, and it's a good, pleasant way to sort of wrap everything up in a nice, neat little bow that feels very positive and affirming. And I think that's another thing. I miss positive movies and television, and maybe part of it is like just the state of the world, that I'm just seeing things through a more cynical lens, in my life, but I forgot how nice it is just to have something pleasant. Not with this underlying current of darkness, but it's just nice. I've missed things that are just nice. I don't want to oversell it. It's not amazing, but it is in keeping with the previous two films, and I think holds up relative to them. I think if there was one element that I was a bit iffy on, I liked him initially, but then the more he was on screen, the more I was like, oh. And there's this robot from the future. And I don't want to dive into him too much because he's a bit of a later addition as far as the narrative goes, and I don't really want to get into spoilers. Not that this is a movie that is really dependent on big twists or anything, but I just like to be respectful of that. But when he's first introduced, there are little small elements and hints at personality that I really liked. But then when they became more explicit and that personality became more front and center, I'm like, oh, you're actually kind of annoying. I like those as background features. Like, you were a robot with these hints of personality, but now you're just kind of an annoying person, is just how you come across at this point. He doesn't drag anything down, but I think they took what was fun and pleasant and just kind of ran it into the ground with that character. But he's not in a ton of the film, so it doesn't wreck things too much. As far as some of the things we see with, there's time travel in both directions. There's time travel going forward, and I don't feel like this is a spoiler because it was in the trailers, with Bill and Ted trying to fight find a point in their own future when they've written the song so that they can then take it back to the present and perform it. And they're going through these increasingly further down the line time jumps and just not seeing good for their own future. And the girls are going back through time and gathering up musicians to play in the band. And I really enjoyed who they picked for these. Part of me kind of wishes they brought Beethoven back, since there's precedent for him in the series. But minus that, I like the mix of musical types, of points of history. That all worked out really well. And it just comes together nicely and pleasantly it has a really good understanding of its own history as a franchise. Like, this is just fun. Much like the previous two films, it's not amazing. It is not a life-changing film. It's not like life reaffirming or anything, but it's just nice. It's fun. It's sweet. It's got a good closing message that I really, really like. It ends super abrupt though. Like, it's not like it doesn't have an ending. It does. It hits the point that it needs to, but pretty much as soon as it establishes what it needed to establish for the ending to work, it just stops. There's no wrap up after that. It's just, and there we go. Boom, done. And I guess Bogus Journey kind of ended somewhat similarly, but I don't know. That didn't feel as abrupt to me. Anyways, minor nitpick. This is fun. It's not amazing or incredible, but if you like these films, I don't think you'll be let down by Bill and Ted Face the Music. Have you seen it? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I have a Patreon, which is how I am able to do things like afford to rent the thing over Amazon, and it helps keep this whole operation going. If you're able to help me out at any level, that is greatly appreciated. Even if you're not, liking, sharing, subscribing, all of those sorts of things do help me out as well. So I would encourage that, but I also can't really tell you what to do, because end of the day, you are the council, I just run the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned. So, Bill and Ted. Oh my God, dog. Seriously, seriously. Stop it.